Welcome to her remarkable history. Remember, to support our channel, please subscribe. The harsh treatment of Queen Elizabeth I's lady-in-waiting, Mary Dudley. During the reign of Queen Elizabeth I, there was a close-knit group of ladies who tended to the Queen's every need. Inside of the Privy Chamber and the bedchamber, they would wash, dress, and help the Queen to go to the toilet, but also discuss important matters of business inside of the court. Elizabeth surrounded herself with loyal women that she'd known for a long time, and many of these, such as Cat Ashley and Blanche Parry, were rewarded with a lifetime of wealth, luxury and gifts. But there was one lady-in-waiting to the Queen who helped her through her smallpox bout, which almost killed her, and she was a sister of the favourite of Elizabeth, Robert Dudley, the Earl of Leicester. By being the sister of the Queen's favourite, this could have led to Mary Dudley being a prominent member of the government if the pair would have married, and there was much rumours regarding Elizabeth I and Robert Dudley. But what is the story of his sister, the loyal lady Mary Dudley? Now, Mary Dudley was the eldest daughter of 13 children from John Dudley, the first Earl of Northumberland, and his wife Jane Guildford. Her siblings included Guildford Dudley, the young man who married Lady Jane Grey and practically played as king for 9 days, and he was then executed on the orders of Bloody Mary I. She was educated well, as her father during the reign of Edward VI became one of the most influential members of the king's court. She was fluent in many languages, and it was likely that her father was planning to marry her to a wealthy British landowner, or to a European prince, to secure wealth and power for himself. She was very interested in writing, alchemy and literature. However, on the 29th of March 1551, Mary Dudley married Henry Sidney. Henry Sidney later became the Lord Deputy of Ireland, and he was brought up at court as a friend and companion of King Edward VI, and he was close to the king during his reign. But also he served under Mary I and Elizabeth I's reign as a courtier. He was a key part of the Elizabethan conquest of Ireland, and he's still seen as a controversial figure in Ireland for the way he dealt with rebellion. The match of Mary Dudley and Henry Sidney, it's believed, was a love match, and the couple were married, and then 4 months later, Henry became the chief gentleman of Edward VI's Privy Chamber. This was a key position, and he would control access to the young boy king, and he would manage who could speak to the king. Also, he would be a close confidant and would help the king dress and go to the toilet. But during these moments, he had a private audience with the king so he could speak to him. He was knighted, and Mary Dudley was also then, following the marriage of Guildford Dudley, her brother, and Lady Jane Grey, asked to help raise Lady Jane Grey at Sion Abbey, and it was here where Jane was told she would become queen. However, following the deposition and overthrow of the 9-day queen, things were rather dangerous for Mary and her husband. And Mary Dudley was attainted and threatened with execution because of her links to the treachery of putting Jane on the throne. But her husband's sisters were favourite ladies of Mary I, which helped to save her from the executioner's axe. The first child of Mary Dudley and Henry Sidney was born in the November of 1554, and was named after the king, being called Philip. But in 1556, Mary then went to Ireland with her husband, and they lived at Athlone Castle, and another child was born, a daughter, that lived only for a year and a half, before she tragically passed away. But following the death of Mary I, the fortunes of Mary Sidney, or Dudley, changed greatly. Following Elizabeth I's ascension onto the throne, Mary became a gentlewoman of the Privy Chamber. She was not paid, and it was stated that she would not earn a wage, and she became dependent financially on her husband. Her brother Robert, the Earl of Leicester, became the closest the Queen had to her husband, and many believed the couple did have intimate relations, and that the Queen planned to marry Robert Dudley. If this would have happened, this could have made Mary the sister-in-law of the Queen, placing her in a very strong position. However, there were many other men who quested for the hand in marriage of the English Queen. For example, the Habsburgs' candidate, Archduke Charles, asked to marry her, and Mary Dudley acted as a go-between during the negotiations, and also spoke with Spanish ambassadors. It is believed that Elizabeth did indicate her intention to marry the Archduke to Mary, as the ambassador was informed that Mary Dudley said that if this were not true, I might be sure she would not say such a thing, as it might cost her her life, and she was acting now with the Queen's consent, but she, the Queen, would not speak to the Emperor's ambassador about it. But Elizabeth's want to marry cooled, and Mary Dudley was given instructions to speak with them to inform them of this. She was disappointed that she couldn't help the Queen marry, but in the October of 1562, the Queen became incredibly ill with smallpox. The deadly disease ravished through London, but Mary nursed her until she also contracted the illness. Her husband would later remark the scars left by this illness caused her to become less beautiful, but the Queen distanced herself from Mary Dudley. And myth stated that Mary then wore a mask afterwards, but following her recovery, she continued to serve Elizabeth I at court. She travelled to Ireland again to help her husband, who had become the Lord Lieutenant of Ireland. One of the ships destined for the country sank, with all Mary Dudley's clothes and jewels on board. But whilst her husband returned for a few weeks to the English court, Mary came under attack. She dictated to the Mayor of Dublin to relieve the town, and Mary's calls and judgment helped to defeat the Spanish rebels. She was close with her siblings during Elizabeth's reign, and a third child was born at her brother Robert's house. She had 4 more children, but in 1575 her 9-year-old daughter Ambrosia died, and the Queen wrote a letter of condolence to her lady-in-waiting. She continued to be a prominent member of court, and she regularly stayed and visited her brother Robert at Kenilworth Castle. However, Mary and her husband felt constantly short-changed about their finances. They had served the Queen for a long time and had seen others at court gain vast riches, but they had not. They may have even felt used by Elizabeth I, and Mary even had to decline a barony for her husband in 1572. The expenses incurred by this would have been too much, and Henry Sidney had to choose between financial ruin and status, and he refused to plunge his family into financial problems further. Mary also refused to change her rooms at court for older and more decrepit rooms that had been previously used for other servants. It's clear that Mary's status may have risen and fallen with her brother's favour in the Queen's eyes. If Robert Dudley upset the Queen, then it's likely that Mary's status could have been negatively impacted. But Elizabeth I was still attached to her old friend when she left court in the July of 1579, and she suffered again with bad health. Her brother Robert had disgraced the Queen around this time by marrying one of her ladies-in-waiting, but Mary then joined her husband at Ludlow, where he served as the President of the Council of Wales. But over the next year her health deteriorated greatly, to the point where her husband considered future new wives. Mary Dudley managed to live out another 3 years, and she died on the 9th of August 1586. Her husband passed away 3 months before, and she noted it was the most elaborate funeral she had ever attended. The couple were buried together, and it was clear that throughout her life, Mary Dudley had suffered with her health. Mary Dudley, or Lady Mary Sidney, was considered one of the closest ladies-in-waiting to Queen Elizabeth I, and she was a loyal servant throughout her time at the royal court. However, she did this job through loyalty and favour from the Queen, and she did not get paid, and she and her husband repeatedly complained about poor treatment from the Queen. There were many others throughout the royal court who were getting huge grants of land and wealth, but nothing really came Mary's way, despite her husband being a key part in defending Elizabeth's realm. Thank you for watching, and to support, please subscribe to Her Remarkable History. Thank you.